Hi Keith,
Hi, Cheryl. Hi.
how you doing?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Yes, I'm very well, thank you. Yes, we'll wait a few minutes for Tom and some other people to join, and then we'll jump straight in.
Sounds great.
All right. How's things your end?
Yeah, very good, thanks.
Yeah,
How are you today?
yeah, not bad. Busy. It's been a busy year to be honest.
Oh, that's good news.
Yeah, I'm not complaining. Right, okay. Hi Tom,
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Very, very good. Yeah, very good.
Where are you in the world today?
I'm at home in Tooting today, so it's actually quite pleasant to be at home. I've been in the office like relentlessly the last few weeks, so it's been nice to actually have like a little chance to basically just do
Breathe.
this and breathe. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Like
bet.
a series of lots of new business pitches. So
Oh, have you?
like for the rest of this week, I've got like nothing really important to do, so I'm actually really pleased.
Yeah. Do you know, it's funny because I mean I'm always off doing meetings and in London and doing all these kind of things. But when I have an at-home day, it just feels like I get so much more done.
Me too.
Get so much more done. I mean, obviously you need to be on the road, you need to be doing these things, but I just get so much more done. Right, we're just gonna wait for we've had quite a few people that have messaged today to say that they are working, so they're gonna catch the recording.
Oh, nice.
I might just start recording this actually and we'll just get going because I think people can just join as and when if that's all right.
Yeah, yeah, no problem.
So, oh, I'll wait for you to return.
Sorry, I was just grabbing some water. I'm
That's all right.
back.
So obviously, what I'd love to do is just to start with who you are and what you do, and your role at Brainlabs, which is obviously a substantial one for your age. But I'd love you just to kind of talk to me about what that position is.
Yeah, it's a kind of a bit of a mystery to even me what my job is, Cheryl. I think, yeah, the I've been really lucky working at Brain Labs. They've kind of built roles around me, for the last few years. So the story of Brain Labs of my role is that we I worked for a company called Fanbytes, which was acquired. It was this big kind of move into influencer for Brain Labs. It was the first time they'd ever really done anything organic social influencer specific. So it was a big change. And the idea was that they brought me on and I'd worked in that Fanbytes team for quite some time. There's a really amazing story of like how I got there, which we can touch on later. But I started as head of creative strategy in that role, and then went from there to subsequently go on to become global VP of influencer. So we had a UK influencer team, grew that, and then more recently have moved into this global managing partner role, which is as kind of vague as it sounds. It's kind of like a bit of a mystery what they want me to do or what I actually do. Um, but the short version is the role is all about client strategy and growth for the business and doing that primarily through like an influencer and social lens. So it's very yeah, it's kind of focused on those practices and guiding those and helping build that business unit, but with a bit more kind of broader influencer social strategy across the portfolio of clients, which is really interesting. But it is like a very mixed bag of what I actually do because sometimes it'll be new business and other times it'll be kind of client service and other times it's marketing and all of those kinds of things. So it's very, very varied.
For the purpose of the fact that obviously you're joining this call with me, which is part of the media career program. Like lots of people that are in here are usually because they're either looking for work, they've been a byproduct of the industry downturn, which we can touch on a bit in a minute, or they're looking for kind of the next jump in their career. You've had quite same as I, which I think is one of the things that appealed to me about your story, is we both had really unconventional paths, I would say, to success, if you like, very different. But talk to me a little bit about your path to get where you've got, because I don't think I know many people who have the title, the status, and the responsibility that you have at the age that you have. I'm not that I want to talk about your age the entire time of this call,
Yeah.
but normally people who are at your level are substantially older than you're at. And I would say that your career today has been really quite interesting.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a rocket ship, I would say, my career, and it's been faster than I expected, as quick as I hoped, because I've always been like ultra ambitious, and I've my aspiration when I was a kid was basically to be more successful than my dad. That was like the only thing that motivated me when I was a kid. I was like, right, I'm gonna have to be more successful, earn more money, or have like a better job title than my dad. And he worked in insurance, so very different career paths. But my so I'm 30, right? And I've been working since I was 18 because I thought I was going to be the prime minister when I was a kid, Cheryl. I was like dead sure. I think if you asked my mum and dad what I said I wanted to be when I was like 9 or 10, they would have said, I would have told them that I wanted to be Chancellor of the Exchequer because I think it sounded better than being Prime Minister. And you also have, I think you have more responsibility and probably power than the prime minister has at times. So I kind of that's kind of what I thought I was always gonna do, and I wanted to study politics, and I had all these ideas of what my life was going to look like, but I forgot that during my A levels I had to do any work whatsoever. So I kind of rested on my laurels and thought, "Oh, I'm like reasonably intelligent, so it should just be like my GCSEs or A levels, and I'll be fine." And yeah, I didn't do as well as I thought I was going to do, so I ended up kind of resitting my exams. But midway through those exams, I got a job offer that I wasn't expecting, and it came from a games company who I had set up a fan site, like a website that I was dedicated to how much I hated the games company when I was 16. And the games company had changed the game that I really loved playing. They'd taken away some of the features that we loved, and I had like 20, 30,000 people on this forum. This was like how old it was. Like it was on a forum when those were popular. And they invited me when I was 16 or 17 to come to their office, and they said, tell us how to fix this and how we market it. And I kind of gave them my thoughts and helped their CEO record like a video that people had to watch to explain the concept of the changes they were going to make to restore the game to its kind of former glory. They listened to me. I sat down with the CEO, recorded the video with him, wrote the script, and they literally published it as is. And then I thought they were joking when they said, "Oh, we'll get in touch with you on your 18th birthday and we'll send you a job contract." But I like this is no word of a lie. On my 18th birthday received an email from this games company which had like 1,000 staff and 250 million players, and like it's a huge games company, and literally with a job offer to go and join their team as a community manager. And I did that for 2 years, 3 years, and my boss, who was the head of community, left, and they were trying to hire someone for so long for this head of community role, but it's such a niche role, like to work in the gaming space in these community and social roles. So I went to the CEO and I said, "Look, you're not having any success in hiring anyone. How do you feel about letting me do it in the interim? And if I'm crap, then you can just demote me when you find someone good. But if I'm good enough to keep it for 6 months, then you have to give me the job and the salary and all of those things." And he was like, "Okay, that sounds like a bit of like
No
a
brainer.
win for me." Yeah. So I did that, and I ended up in that head of community and social role for another 2 or 3 years before joining Social Chain. So some people might know the Steve Bartlett's name. So Steve reached out to me and said, "Look, will you either give us some money to market your brand, or will you come work for us?" And I obviously took the job offer. So I worked for Steve for a couple of years in social chain before going and setting up my own shop, doing a very similar thing, and did that for a couple of years. And it was like a an agency that I'd kind of founded and or co-founded with like a bigger agency group. Um, Exited that, bought a house, did nice things with my life, and then did a bit of freelancing for a while, and then ended up in Fanbytes, which is the company that Brainlabs acquired. And again, that was a bit of a random job opportunity, to be quite honest with you, because I accidentally took the CEO of that company for a dinner at Blacklock on his birthday for his like birthday lunch. And because I'd reached out to him on LinkedIn and said, "Hey, I'd love to take you for lunch because I think you're really interesting and I'd like to work with you at some point in my career. So I'm just kind of like trying to figure you out." And he came back to me like a few weeks later saying, "Thanks for the birthday lunch. Here's like what we're hiring for at the moment, and do you want to come and do it? We're about to be acquired, so there's some equity in there for you if you fancy it." And I said, "Yeah, that sounds like a bit of a dream." So yeah, that's kind of how I ended up there. And then Brain Labs has just been as I say, even more of an accelerator where I think I've definitely got like strategies for optimizing my career path now. Like I've figured out what's made me successful so far, and I've been doing that within Brain Labs and out to the market. But that's been another rocket ship where I think, I mean, we touched on like age there. And I've actually, when I started my career, I was really like embarrassed of being young. And now I've kind of used my age to my advantage and turned that into like a selling point of you when you go in to see these like CMOs that are, in their 50s and 60s, they've got so much experience. I can never compete with that. So I have to find a differentiator for myself, and that is you are not the audience you want to reach, but I am.
Yeah.
And that's why I work in social and influencer, is because those are the things that work for marketing to me and my peers. And so I kind of I found that niche and focused in on it, which obviously if you're not 30, it's hard to do, but I think there are strategies you can deploy to like find that for any kind of whatever age you are or whatever stage in your career you're at.
What an interesting story. And I'm going to ask you later. I'm not going to ask it now, but I want to know what it's like to work with Steve. I actually met him at an event last year. Not what I expected, actually.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that in a second. So obviously you've been at Brain Labs a while, but you've only been as a global MP for this year, the
Yeah,
best
yeah,
part of this year.
yeah.
Was that part of your plan? So you said earlier you obviously have a very entrepreneurial spirit to you, clearly, very successful, and you've been very strategic with it. But was that the plan?
No, definitely not. I like it kind of went completely against the plan, actually, where I felt like I'd reached this limit of my tolerance of like working in a bigger agency. So Brain Labs, for context, is like 1,100 people. It's still very, very quickly growing, and like we're winning lots of new business, which is exciting. But it's kind of if we think about that entrepreneurial spirit, it becomes very difficult to affect change as companies grow. And so I've always seen like my fastest growth in smaller businesses where I've kind of had to do lots and lots of things. And I feel like I can bring a lot into those companies and help make them successful. So I feel like more of a multiplier.
Mhm.
Whereas in Brain Labs, I feel like I'm additive, but I'm not necessarily a multiplier there because it's so, so big that the impact you can have is kind of reduced. So, to be completely honest, I've been trying to leave for ages, but they keep finding really exciting and interesting things for me to do. And I don't get bored of those things because as soon as I finish one thing, there's like another million challenges to do. And I think what I've realized is my kind of dream roles are like manager without portfolio. So just like find a thing and let me fix it or do it or win it or build it. And that's what I find really, really exciting. And so this managing partner role, they basically developed to allow me to do that, where they said we just need to find this guy some like a role that gives him kind of carte blanche to just pick up projects or opportunities and run with them and build relationships with clients. So yeah, it definitely wasn't part of the plan. I was trying to find somewhere smaller that I could be more impactful, but then they just said, please stay and please do this kind of random stuff instead, and it felt a bit like a dream to me. So I was like, okay, sounds good.
Which in today's market where there's about 800 to 1,000 people that go for every role and roles are like gold dust at the moment, that's
Unbelievably so, yeah.
incredible. Really kudos to you that they want to keep you. And you're obviously very good at what you do, which we'll touch on again in a second. But you mentioned earlier about the fact that you've always had a plan for your career in terms of being quite
Mm.
strategic. You wanted to know, you kind of knew what's next. How or what strategies did you adopt to make sure that you got there? And I love the fact that you reached out to someone. This is something that we do in the program, but you reached out to someone quite unique. You didn't kind of say, look, I want to meet, I want to have a coffee with you. You're like, I want to buy you lunch. You did it on his birthday. He obviously remembered you. Like, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean the strategies that I've always believed that I have to like optimize for a couple of different things in my career. Like there are so many different pushes and pulls that we have. I've I've never really been someone who's necessarily motivated by like the the name of the company I'm going to go and work for. I don't get an intense sense of pride if I was going to go work for some mega corporation or some incredible brand. That's not something that necessarily appeals to me. And so I've never optimized or like thought about that. I always look at like role and impact that I can make because for me, the motivators are obviously make money. That's kind of the only reason I go to work is I would like to have money so I can go on more holidays essentially. But I I think the way that I can make like substantially more money is by having substantially more impact. And I want to be indispensable and transformative to businesses that I go and work in. So I think we often follow this kind of like very linear career path where we say, okay, either I need to get more senior in the same size business or very senior in a smaller business, or I can take a slight step back but work in a bigger business. And I don't necessarily know if that's the case or the right optimization to make. The strategy I've always deployed is to find something that I think I'm going to be like really transformative at and like be discerning about the role and then really like focus in on going and finding opportunities that resemble that like dream role. So to be quite honest with you, before I started at Fanbyte, I'd never actually sat in a creative strategy role. Like I had that as part of my job and I knew I was good at it, but I realized that that was an area where I was like substantially better than my peers. And so I went, okay, well, I need to find a creative strategy role now. And I need to work in influencer and social because that's my niche. And so I've in that case, like that's how I've kind of designed my career path. And then all the actions I've taken as a consequence, I've kind of looked at establishing some kind of authority or expertise and like publicly building that. So with when I worked at the games company, they were acquired when I was there. When I worked at Social Chain, they were acquired while I was there. When I worked at my agency, we were acquired while I was there. When I did my freelance and contracting, the way I got all of those contracting roles was I approached companies that I'd heard rumors that they were being acquired or looking for acquisition. And I said, hey, by the way, I've gone into these five businesses, they've all been acquired, and I've navigated that tricky process and I know how to like sell you. So if you'd like me to come in and do that as well, then I can. So I joined a company called Face It to basically see them through an acquisition by the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund, and was their communication and brand director on like a contract basis, essentially to just focus the news on amplifying them, the stories that were going to make them more valuable. And then my job was then to see them through this merger with another esports company that had been acquired at the same time. And I finished that contract and I basically then went to Fan Bites and I said, hey, like I've heard on the grapevine that you are looking for acquisition. I think you'd be more valuable if you had like me in the business and here's what I'm good at. Let me know if there's anything that you fancy me doing. And that's when he kind of came back with these like three different jobs that I could do, and he said, just pick one. And so I did. And so I kind of built authority within like acquisitions within the marketing space, and I did some speaking about those things. I was writing content about those things. I was like commentating with journalists on like agency acquisitions and mergers and changes and things like that. So I built like a bit of a network just to put my name next to things that I wanted to be associated with to give me authority. And I think I think I basically become a marketer for myself more than I have like anything else. And I think actually in the media space, in the marketing space, we're actually pretty lousy at marketing ourselves for the most part. And that's where I think I've found like my skill is like, it kind of sounds awful, but I'm like very good at self-promotion.
That doesn't sound awful at all. That's I mean that's a huge pillar of the of what I teach in the program. I mean I not to the same level of success that you have, but everything when I look back at my career, everything that I've ever achieved, I never ever got from applying to a job ad.
Hmm.
In fact, not one. Every single role, like I started, I mean, this isn't about me, but I started off my career in radio, and I did see an ad for a job on the radio as a presenter, and I knew I wouldn't get it, so I approached them and said, "Put me on the radio for 3 months, and if I do a good job, then you hire me."
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and they liked, I think they just was like, who the hell is this girl? I think I was like 19 or something. So they hired me. And then every single role up until when I was head of television, which was my last position before I moved into doing what I do now, I contacted an agency that didn't do TV, that had no idea how to do it. And I said, I can do it for you.
Mhm.
Give me 6 months and I'll make you, 500,000, a million or whatever it was. I can't remember what I said now. And they went, okay, go for it. And that's literally what I did. I do think it's more challenging to do that now in the market that we're in.
Definitely, definitely.
But equally, I also think that with the way AI, and we'll talk about that again in a second, but sort of the way AI is playing a part, I do think we're going to move into an era where services are going to be exchanged in that way, as
Mhm.
opposed to here's a job with a 90 grand salary and great benefits and a pension. It's more a little bit like the strategies you and I have deployed, which is this is what I can do for you. Do you need me?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that is it. It's either someone's going to come to you and say, "Hey, I know you're good at this thing, and I'd like you to do it for me," which is rare. And as you've just said, the job market is absolutely awful at the moment. It's harder than it's ever been. Like I see it in the applications we get. We're getting hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of actually very qualified people coming in to try and work at Brainlabs, and we have to find the one person that we're going to hire. Like it's incredibly difficult. And I think we are increasingly seeing like a change in the types of people that we hire because we are looking for people who are going to have like rather than just to fulfill a role, we're looking at people with like the potential to go far beyond that because they've also done or are doing like this adjacent brand building of themselves or they know how to operate like to go into the world of influencer. There is no qualification to work in an account director in an influencer agency to be able to use AI effectively or create content on LinkedIn effectively, but you multiply your value by being able to do those things because AI probably isn't going to steal your job, but someone who's better at using AI will steal your job.
Yeah.
And I really firmly believe that is like it, and AI is not the antidote to anything, and I don't think it's necessarily the future of anything because I think we're reaching a bit of a plateau with it. But what I will say is that if it's not AI, it will be something else. And we can't rely on like the old rules of how we used to work or how the agencies used to set themselves up or how the media space used to look like. That just doesn't work and it will not work for a future world. So you kind of have to progress faster than the industry. And if you can show you're doing something better than they are, then you just become far more attractive.
Agreed. Obviously you're in the influencer space, but your personal brand is incredible, which I suspect is the reason why half the reason you've got to where you've got, but also the way you featured into like Vogue Business
Mm.
post. I mean, that's an amazing achievement at your age. Talk to me about how important the personal brand is for you, but also for people who are looking for work, because I preach about this all the time, and I think it's
Mm.
absolutely integral and will continue to be so.
I think just the value of speaking on stage once and having a nice photograph taken of yourself pointing at a slide is massive. That's the first thing I will say. Like, there is a reason that my LinkedIn banner has not changed in like 10 years, is because it's like the most, like, it's like just, it looks powerful and
Yeah.
you present authority, right? So I have very, very consciously sought to build my personal brand. And I have been doing that because I know, one, there is value for me in terms of my career and all of the opportunities that it brings and all of the elevation it kind of makes me more valuable to prospective employers and all of those kinds of things. But also, it's made me better at my job because I've spoken at events with where, like, in the audience has been the head of communications for the Ministry of Defence, and that's then led me to do work with the Ministry of Defence, and that work led me to do work with Public Health England and Department of Education, and I went to Number 10 and I'm working with like Downing Street on their communication strategy, and it's all based on the fact that one person saw me speak a few years ago on a stage and went, that person's saying something I like and is teaching me something and they know more than we do. And I really, really firmly believe that you only need like a couple of those opportunities to be like quite transformative in your career. The reason that Brainlabs has kind of invested so much in me and my personal brand is because it's that personal brand has basically given us one of our biggest clients in the form of Estee Lauder. We manage them in the UK because they kind of saw some stuff I was posting on LinkedIn a while ago, reached out for us to do a talk at one of their events, and they have subsequently gone on to become like our biggest spending client and our like kind of crowning achievement as an agency. And we work with them globally. And I've kind of, for want of a better word, become famous within their organization because of like I did a talk once and they because they saw a LinkedIn video. So Brainlabs has benefited from my
Mm.
personal brand, and so they will buy me equipment and they will like have a marketer follow me around at events and take pictures of me and videos of me and help me record and edit content. Like they are so happy to do all of those things because it supports the growth of the business, and they also recognize that it supports the growth of my career. And we all know it's important. Everybody knows that the personal brand is important, and so few people do it.
Hmm. Hmm.
You don't even need to make videos. Like I find it unbearable to watch myself back in video. Like I don't, I'm sure I'm not alone in that. Like I'm like, oh my God, my voice is awful, or like I don't even know what I'm saying. Um, but you could just write a blog or like some good LinkedIn posts that actually share value with your followers. And even if no one engages with it, when someone in the recruitment team of that job you've just applied for, or the person you're taking for lunch, when they look you up on LinkedIn and you've got some pieces that are thought-provoking or interesting or express your personality, suddenly they go, okay, well, I'm not just looking at someone's LinkedIn as if it's their proxy for a CV. I'm looking at it and they're a content producer, someone with an opinion and a point of
Hmm.
view. And the more senior you become, I have realized the more important it is to have a clear point of view and to back that and represent that and talk about that and be known for it. So there are like I will very specifically in content I produce now use phrases that I feel like I can own. So I'm not even just talking about like the theory of influencer and social. I'm naming approaches and I'm saying, okay, well, like now currently I'm talking about connected influencer because that is something that when I was Googling it, no one is talking about with real authority and no one had defined a meaning for it. So I decided I was going to define a meaning for it and make that my like message for the next 6 months. I'm going to talk about how you integrate influencer marketing into your broader media ecosystem. And that is basically, I've just designed a narrative for the next 6 months. So I've got like a few decks that I take to conferences where I'll share like the stories that basically connect to that one point. I'm producing LinkedIn content, I'm producing blogs, we're doing editorials on the Brainlabs website. We go into clients and talk about this. And so all the time there's like this consistent narrative that we've developed. And I think that is the way that essentially I've been able to build it. And then I can say to an influencer agency, if I ever want to leave Brainlabs, hey, have you heard of Connected Influencer? And what if I made it possible for you guys, despite the fact that you're not set up for it right now? I happen to be the pioneer of that thing. Do you want to go and do it? And it may be that some other people are doing the same work, but probably no one's defined the framework and the term, and therefore they haven't managed to own it. And that's essentially what I'm trying to do.
So again, that's being really strategic with you're not just doing it for doing its sake, you're doing it because there's a potential outcome for you.
Yeah, yeah. It's selfish as well. Like either I become more successful at Brain Labs or I get better job offers. That's literally the only reason I do it.
Yeah, absolutely. But selfish, that's what we're all here for. We're all here for our own
Yeah, yeah,
purpose.
yeah.
I'm not being funny, but we are. I talk about in the program, I talk a lot about LinkedIn. Like I am an absolute advocate of LinkedIn. Like I love it. I'm surprised that no one's tried to compete with them in
Mm.
today's day and age, and the power that they hold is ridiculous. I spend an absolute fortune on a monthly basis on LinkedIn, but anyway, that's a whole other story. But it's important, right? LinkedIn is where
Mm.
people need to be.
Yeah, it's the most important platform for your career and like end of. If there is a way to get, there's no other platforms that will literally give you free reach to prospective employers, clients, and like it's just unbelievable. And it's so undervalued as a content creation platform
Mhm.
because most people just lurk and expect to be like found and click easy apply.
Yeah.
Um, and I've been guilty of this in the past. And then I realized like if I post stuff that's valuable, I will literally be in the top like 0.25% of LinkedIn users. That's it. And it's literally just like writing a blog or sharing some work you've done. Like if you're in like an art director or a creative director, if you're a producer, like just share something you've worked on. Like that in itself is so much more than most people would do on LinkedIn because people do just treat it as like a obligatory, I'll upload my current CV and make sure it's up to date and have a nice picture of me smiling on the cover. And they don't realize that it's a platform that will give you free reach to prospective employers. That is it's unbelievable how untapped it is. I'm so bullish on LinkedIn. And I have a theory, Cheryl, about LinkedIn, and I think you're all going to become conspiracy theorists like me. As you know, if anyone's active on LinkedIn right now, you'll know that they've released those games, like the word games and the puzzles and things. I think Microsoft have figured out that they can do IQ profiling of all of their users and understand like their verbal reasoning skills, their problem solving skills, and all of those kinds of things. Profile the users and then map them to companies and then invest in companies with high IQ or EQ people. So I'm pretty bullish that Microsoft is about to launch like a LinkedIn index or something that I will definitely back because there are some games I'm very, very good at and some games I'm very, very bad at. And I find that really interesting. And so I reckon they're building a profile of all of their users like intelligence in different areas. So they'll be able to use that as an investment guide and they'll start selling that data, I think.
I never would have even considered that, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's my conspiracy.
I like
Start
that.
spreading that around, guys. That's my
We're going to
thinking.
start looking at that now.
Yeah, yeah.
I always talk about LinkedIn because I mean I like like you I'm a big believer of it, but I do get quite a lot of resistance from people who don't want to be on it because they I don't do social media. That's what they say. I don't do social media. I don't like it. And I always say, I'm interested in your opinion on this. Like, I feel like there's no point being on LinkedIn if you are serious about your career and then just not being active on it. Because
Mm.
if, especially at the moment when there's roughly 1,000 people that go for every one role, I always say you have to be the bloody unicorn to be the one anyway that gets the role. But if there's the difference between you and one other has got no personal brand, exactly the same experience, but no personal brand, doesn't have anything to say on LinkedIn, but can do the job. And then there's you who has something to say, a voice, clearly cares about their presence, clearly cares about how they hold themselves. To me, it's a no-brainer that you're going to, as a recruiter, I put my head on. I literally, and I've been guilty of this in the past, and I apologize for it, but I have discounted people before when I've seen their profile. There's no picture, there's no banner, there's no contact info. I think when you're not on LinkedIn, you just don't care.
Yeah, they're not serious about it. I do feel exactly the same. Like my first thing whenever I'm hiring for someone is I don't look at their CV, I go on their LinkedIn.
So,
And I want to see like because the LinkedIn will give me everything I need to know about their like career anyway. But I'm more interested in their point of view. Like the most successful hire I ever made, a girl called Izzy, and I shouldn't ever tell her that she was my favorite hire of all time because she will take that like and her head will get so big. But in her interview, I knew I wanted to hire her anyway because she had an amazing CV and she'd posted loads on LinkedIn and had like really clear points of view. And she opened the interview and she said, "What's your opinion on this thing?" And she'd clearly read my LinkedIn. And so she just wanted me to regurgitate something I was passionate about. And we just talked for an hour about that thing. And it was about how we measure return on ad spend in influencer. and we just like talked about it for an hour, and I understood that I knew from that conversation that she truly understood how influencer works, why brands are successful, why brands aren't successful. And so all of those interview questions I had completely went out of the window because I just immediately knew, God, if I put her in front of any of our clients, one, she's incredibly knowledgeable, two, she's like provocative and interesting, and three, like she can command a space.
Hmm. Hmm.
And she'd also she'd also like impressed me because she'd done the research with my LinkedIn and she'd shared stuff on her LinkedIn. So like it just felt like the perfect hire. And she was incredible. She's gone on to become head of social at the Inky list, and then she left there and went, and she's now just freelancing because people are just desperate for her to come in and like fix their stuff. And she's a very special character. And I think it all came from the fact that she'd really curated her LinkedIn presence, but also like worked with mine to understand what I was talking about. And so she knew the Brainlabs point of view and all of those kinds of things. So I really believe in the power of it as a platform. And to your point around, when people say I don't do social media, LinkedIn isn't social media, it's professional media.
Hmm.
It requires a redefinition. And if you have the luxury of being so successful in your career that you do not need LinkedIn, then power to you. But if you are ever unhappy in your role, and or if you're ever looking for a new role or want to grow in your career and you're not doing LinkedIn, then you are actively harming yourself. Like it is literally like that. If I was unemployed right now, the only thing I would be doing is building my profile and reaching out to people specifically on LinkedIn, and hopefully working with people like you, Cheryl, to help me find a job. But like I would be really aggressively like pushing the brand and reaching out to people who were talking about similar things to me, building a network, asking for recommendations, and trying to find hiring managers that I thought would click with me. And yeah, I really believe in the platform.
Agreed. I literally everything you've just said is literally what I preach about. And I just think it's integral in today's job market to do something different.
Mm.
Not just to hit easy apply because you're just not going to penetrate 1,000
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
I mean, the one does, but you are, unlikely to be the one. So what advice, if you just say you're unemployed tomorrow and just say you're not in the level that you're at, just say you're midway, let's go back a few years. What would you, and you have given us some insights already, but what advice would you give? What would you do apart from LinkedIn?
Yeah, I would go and define like a point of view and really start like thinking about what that is. I would build a list of things that motivate me in like as in what are the types of roles that I would be really passionate about doing that align with that kind of narrative that I've defined, like the thing I believe in, or the provocation for agencies or companies that I'd like to work at. So I always, in every pitch, for instance, I start with a provocation. I say, if you don't do this, then you will die. Or if you don't do this, then some brand is going to eat your lunch. Or if you don't do this, then your agency is going to fail. Like that's literally the first slide of every presentation I make. And I would find that for my prospective employer that I was going to go and reach out to. So I would say, okay, I know I want to work for a mid-size agency, and I know mid-size agencies are under threat because they're either getting acquired or the mid-market is disappearing. So I would define like, okay, what is it that a mid-market agency needs to do right now, and what can I do to transform that and help that happen? And then I would really aggressively reach out to leaders of those agencies, whether that's like if I was slightly more junior, I think I'd be reaching out to like operations directors, COOs, probably not CEOs, but depending on the size of the company, possibly, and saying like, here's what I'm thinking is happening in your industry. Does this align with what you're seeing? By the way, I have this point of view, and I think I could do something really special with you. Let me know if you want to catch up for lunch or something, and I'm happy to come into your office or meet you anywhere that's convenient for you. And in the same way that I use like this deep research stuff on clients, I'd also be looking at what people are talking about in like interviews, podcasts,
Mhm.
on their own LinkedIn, and try and mirror that back to them. So if you haven't used it, Gemini, Google's AI tool, has deep research mode, and it will go and like seek out information about people. So, for instance, if you wanted to go and work at Mastercard, you can say, "Tell me give me a list of every senior marketer at Mastercard, and tell me what they're talking about in any interviews, podcasts, LinkedIn posts, articles, blogs," and it will give you like a full written report that you can digest on what those people are talking about. I would then literally go and like connect with them, email them, try and work out where they're going to be speaking next, and then I'd go and buy a ticket to that event and go and say, "Oh, I loved what you talked about, but I know you're also really interested in this, and I have a point of view on that." And all of a sudden, you've got a connection and a way of getting around that. So I think we are so clever as marketers, we are so dumb as job seekers.
Mm,
And I think we owe it to ourselves to apply the same skills and energies and thinking and level of care that we have for our clients and the work and apply that to our own careers. And I think that's where I've basically been able to make myself successful is I've spotted that other people aren't doing it. So I've just done it and been very lucky, I think, and in the right place at the right time. But I've also maximized I've like made my own luck as much as I can.
yes.
Um, so I'm really, really passionate about like being targeted, being strategic, and I think that's the kind of thing that will unlock like career growth for anyone at any stage in their career, genuinely.
Agreed. I always say when 1,000 people go that way, you're the one that goes the opposite
Yeah.
and do something that's completely different than what others are doing because that is what it takes at the moment. And I empathize with the situation that people are in. It's tough out there. There are, one role for 1,000 people, but you have to stand out. And the only way you can do that, in my opinion, in our industry is LinkedIn. Um,
Mm.
and all the power to LinkedIn, to be honest. Before we open it up to a Q&A, if you're happy for people to
Yeah.
ask you some questions, I just want to ask what your opinion of working with Steve was. He's an interesting character, isn't he?
He is an interesting character. I have to be careful because we do have defamation laws in this country. Um, Let me speak generally about founder CEOs.
Okay.
I've got a solicitor whispering in my ear right now, so
Mm.
I'm speaking generally.
Okay.
Um, I think, and I have actually worked for other founder CEOs, and I think the most successful founder CEOs are ones who have basically built an amazing PR machine around whatever they're building. I think we have seen a lot of people that I would say are kind of snake oil salesmen. They have become very, very successful because they found a thing that the industry wants and have packaged it in a way that makes it believable. And fair play for spotting opportunities. I think that's remarkable and that's a real skill. But there is a difference between a visionary person with an idea and someone who is competent and capable of leading businesses and people. And there are very few people who can do both.
Mm.
And I haven't met them yet, is what I would say.
Okay.
I am, yeah, I always want people to be successful. I want people to be good. You often don't see that. And I think yeah, it, a lot of people are snake oil salesmen, is what I would say. And if you just read the story behind the PR headlines, and I think you'll figure out like most people are full of shit, frankly.
Yeah, I say we all are to a degree. I think what to a degree. I think when I met Steve last year, what I thought was interesting about him was I mean, he's the absolute epitome of someone who has built success on her brand, on his
That's not
own
right. Yeah.
brand. And I admire that in him. But someone asked him on the stage something like, how has he been so successful? Basically, how has he done it? And he said it was making the right hires, which I thought was also absolutely testament to what I preach about. Like, if you find the right people, you don't have to be the best. I don't pretend to be the best at anything, but I am good at spotting good people.
Mm. Yeah, I think that is a definite talent to have actually is like team building. The Again, I kind of always think about where I'm weak and then try and hire around that so that it makes me stronger or our team stronger. Again, as I've become more, one of the biggest lessons in my career as I've become more senior is to stop congratulating myself so much. because I'm always like, oh, I did this great work, and actually, I probably didn't do all that great work because I had all of these really intelligent and fantastic people around me, basically doing it for me and bringing my idea to life or whatever that may be. And as a leader, you basically congratulate your team and you're congratulating yourself, and uh, you are you are a product of the people you put around you, and you are a product of the teams that you build. And yeah, I think that's the biggest shift in my career was like realizing that I didn't have to be the one who always took the glory, which sounds very obvious, but that's definitely my shortcoming is I have like a need for praise, and I'm sure my therapist will be able to unpack that with
There's
me,
stuff
but
to unpick there, yeah.
yeah, probably not one just before the Q&A though, guys.
I think we all want that though. We all want a bit of a pat in the back.
Yeah.
It's nice. It's nice to feel like you're contributing and that you've done it. But I really, really genuinely have appreciated your time. Has anyone got any questions for Tom? Don't all speak at once.
I always think if there's no questions, sometimes that's a good thing. I've just dazzled everyone. That's how I've made my career so successful. Is everyone's like, I've got no idea what this guy just said, so I won't ask any questions.
Pat.
I'm going to jump in if I may,
Yeah.
with a question. So first of all, yeah, I mean, really appreciate your thoughts, Tom, and really interesting story. And wanted to kind of take you back to the taking CEO out for lunch. Love that. One of the things that I found, so my background was come out of a corporate career of many years, just set up a consultancy of my own,
Mhm.
connecting with people, getting conversations going, meeting with people. I feel I'm quite good at that. I feel that's going quite well. But in an environment where there are so few jobs, where budgets are so small, have you got any tips for kind of that crucial, I suppose you call it closing,
Yeah, the
no,
close. Yeah.
getting those people over the line and to a commit? I feel like I've got quite a few people to to the to the lunch. Getting them to dessert is maybe proving harder. Have you got
I
any
love
tips around that?
That's a great question, Pat. That is actually a great question, and that's like the holy grail of this, right? Is like, yeah,
Sure.
if you're good at you're already miles ahead of most people. I would say if you're good at getting people to go for lunch, like the connection is the hard bit. The close is the absolutely impossible thing, and you maybe do that 20 times and you get one. And that's the game we're playing is like to get to lunch is hard. And then
Right.
you've got to do that in a sustained way. I like that one lunch I tell the story about was not one lunch, it was 10 lunches or 10 coffees or whatever. But the secret of how I turn them into closes now, because I have got good at that, is I will always give them like one a provocation. So I'll say, look, you you are going if you don't want to work with me, that's fine, but you'll miss out on this specific thing. And then I turn it into like a bonus malus type arrangement where I'm like, look, here's where you want to get to. Like we can both through this lunch, I basically convinced you that you need to get to this point. I think I can help you get there. If you don't believe me, I'm happy to like put my money where my mouth is. So, okay, I actually want this much money to come in and do it, but I'll take this much. And if I achieve this within 6 months, if I help us get there, I'm happy. I'll take a little bit extra actually. So if I came in and wanting 200,000 in I'll take 220 if I can get to this milestone in 6 months. But if not, that's no problem. You know what? I'll take my leave and go. And that's no worries. Like so they don't suffer any they benefit from your skills, but you're basically putting your money where your mouth is and saying, okay, like I'm in the same, especially with consultants, like I only ever hire a consultant on like a bonus malus arrangement now where I'm like, okay, you hand me back some of the money or I won't pay you as much if you don't hit those goals. You don't have to say like you don't have to kill yourself for it, like to just make them achievable, but like you do have to make meaningful progress in the 6 months that you're there or a year it can be. But I always think like, especially I'm imagining if you're like consulting, you're talking to CEOs, right? And MDs and all of those kinds of things. Those are people who want to do a deal. They're people with the
Hmm.
capability of like they're not hiring managers. They're not like, oh yeah, you can have X salary. They are there to grow their business and do a deal with you. So you can say, like, I'm going to do a deal with you here. Either I'll do it or I won't, and you pay me if I do, and so you win. And if you don't, if I don't deliver, then you only have to pay me this much for my time. And so you win then as well. And suddenly they're doing a deal. So you think about the motivation of the person you've taken for lunch, and all of a sudden they feel like they've won coming out of it, as opposed to having to find 50, 60, 100, 200, half a million pounds. They've gone, I've just unlocked an opportunity for my business and I'm about to grow it. And if it doesn't work, that's not on me. Brilliant.
Right.
So
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
just
yeah.
finding that motivation point. I hope that answers your question, but that's basically all I've ever done differently in those situations to
Yeah.
optimize my outcomes.
Yeah, no, it's super helpful. I mean, I think what I'm finding in those conversations that yeah, the kind of the it gets to the devil in the details,
Mm.
structuring deals, structuring arrangements, what does that look like?
Yeah.
Yeah, to negate risk on behalf of the businesses trying to help, but then also kind of push your own case forward. But yeah, super helpful. Appreciate it, Tom.
It's the car salesman thing, right? Like it's like, oh, so you need to go home and talk to your wife. What do you think she would say? And
Mm,
what can I do to put that fear to rest now, as
mhm.
opposed to you having to
Right.
go away and like that's the way I think about it. Is like
Yeah, yeah,
think about going and buying a new car and how many times I've gone, oh, I'll think about it, and they go, what are you going to think about? I'm like, I
yeah.
become that kind of asshole a little bit.
I mean, not to the same level, but and I wouldn't recommend that anybody goes and does it for free, but it's a little bit like when I was at the radio and I said, I'll work for free for 3 months. And if I do a good job, then you pay me what I'm worth. And you can't do that now. This was back in the heyday when people were doing that. But I knew that I could absolutely turn things around for their audience. I mean, that's really arrogant, but I did, and I knew I could. And then they hired me, and then I was there for years, and then that led to TV gigs and stuff like that. So I played a bit of a long game with that, but.
That would be I think that's an unbelievable luxury, right? Like being able to do that now in our careers, like where we
Yeah.
have obligations and bills to pay.
Yeah,
Um,
can't do it now.
but like I think there is something in that being bolshy and saying like, no, I really believe in my ability to do this, and it's finding a structure of how you do that in a way that isn't going to break the bank for yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
Because bear in mind, all of these companies are absolute bastards and they are looking to extract value from us. So we have to be bastards as well and
Hmm.
extract value from them. That's our obligation to ourselves. So yeah, like obviously I don't do work for free, but I would, if I thought there was going to be a massive upside, I would do it at a discount, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Just
I
because
mean, I was 19. It was different back then. I
yeah,
couldn't do it now.
yeah, well, I remember when in my first job, I was like, I was living with my parents, so I was like, well, I could definitely do like more hours and more responsibility for the same salary. Yeah, well, that sounds great.
Yeah. Now you're like, nah.
Yeah, now I'm like, absolutely not. You've not paid me to go here, so I won't be going there.
Yeah, 110% agree with that. Any other questions, guys? No?
Fabulous.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's not so much about job strategy as strategy in what you're doing. And you mentioned AI and maybe plateauing, but the content, so much of it. And I'm just wondering where you're seeing things go for brands who are
Mm.
being told they need to make content, but it's really hard to punch through with so much out there.
Yeah, that's so true. The the biggest kind of like secret for brands, I think I've always talked about when you first like launch content, particularly on like any kind of social media, the platforms will help you find an audience. So just talking like going back to the basics of marketing where we talk about like finding our ideal customer profile and then just building like video or written content for that one person and making an assumption that we've like sized our audience sufficiently that like that one person is actually 100,000 or a million. For the most part, that's kind of like how we approach it. And I think content is getting much cheaper because AI is allowing people to do that, but it also means that we're kind of heading towards this dead internet theory, like graveyard of hell of social media content just being this like slop that AI learns from itself and it just is horrible. And in a world where like everything's tagged with made with AI, I wonder if like the badge of honor is now going to be like crafted by humans. And
Mm,
that's basically what I would pitch out to most brands and agencies going, actually, we don't need creatives now because we've got AI, and say, well, all of your peers are saying that as well. And audiences know that you are producing slop. And so don't you want to be that one person who really leans into real
mm,
people, real connection, real content? Um, because we've been preaching about authenticity for years, and then this new shiny generate video button turns up, and we're all quite happy to forget the authenticity bollocks that we've been talking about, right? So I quite like to point out everyone's hypocrisy when, like, I'll be in Cannes next week, and last year it was about AI and no one knew how to use it and what it was going to do, and this year it'll be about AI with everyone going, yeah, and we're going to sack all our creative teams because we can just press generate. And I would challenge every marketer doing that to think about the implications for the long term of their business, where right now AI content looks okay, but when everything becomes homogenous, we will crave human creativity. And it's whether the brands that we work for and aspire to be part of decide they want to be on the wrong or the right side of that shift. I
mm.
mean,
mm,
I'm pretty
mm,
bullish that AI is an augment to what we do, but it's never going to be a replacement. And yeah, there is never going to be a substitute for human creativity. And if there is, then hats off to whoever develops that technology, but it's certainly not here.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
There's hope for us all yet.
Very much so. Very much so. We use AI all the time at work and in generating content for sure. Generate like I put AI content in pitch decks to like mock things up, and it helps because it's just super quick iteration. But that's never the final article. It's
Mm,
never it's only ever an articulation of like what the spirit of the idea is, just to help someone understand. It's like if we put a prompt into an AI, I expect the AI to produce like a, a prompt back. Like if I'm saying I want this, it gives me this, and that is just a prompt. So someone understands what this is.
mhm,
So
mhm.
this is the same the whole time, right? I'm just trying to get someone to see it instead of having to explain it. So that's that. I think that's all I ever think about with AI. But maybe I'm obtuse and not listening to the signals of the future, but I just don't believe it.
I hope not. I hope not. But I mean I agree with you in what you said earlier about the fact that I think if you don't embrace it, even if you absolutely don't want to, if you don't learn even the basics and the fundamentals, you will be left behind because everybody has to learn. I mean, I still speak to some people when I do calls with candidates every day, and for certain roles, some people will go, not interested in AI, don't want to know, don't want to learn it. And I'm like, well, I'm really sorry, I can't put you forward. Because if you're not prepared to learn, you're not prepared to upskill, then you're just not going to last.
Yeah, yeah, you're not keeping up with the industry. Like that's where we're going. Like the only reason I'm allowed to have this opinion about AI is because I know exactly how to use it and
Yeah,
get the best out of it. And I still know that's not as good as the work that our real creatives
yeah,
produce.
yeah.
And so if I go, "Oh, AI is awful, I'm never touching it," how could I possibly know what it's capable of unless I've become an expert in it? And in truth, it does massively augment the work I do because it now means that if I want to reach out to some client with inform like I can find out exactly what they're talking about, and I don't even have to listen to the bloody podcast. I can get
Mm,
the sound bites, I can get the quotes, I can get the every article they've ever been featured in, everything they've ever spoken about on LinkedIn in a report, and then I just ask AI to then say, okay, if Cheryl is talking about these 10 things, what are the things she talks about most frequently? Based on what you know about like my business and me, what are my points of view on that? Give me 10 article headlines or 10 video ideas for things I could produce that will appeal to that person. And then I just go and say, okay, I actually get ChatGPT to interview me using the voice mode
yeah, yeah,
to write my articles.
yeah,
So I can just say, right, here is like the theory and the point I'm making. Write a list of questions, interview me, and then turn the things I say into copy. And then I've given you all of my style guide, so it's seen all of the work that I've produced kind of myself. And so I say, just follow this style guide, but interviews me. So it's my words just in a better written format. And it works every single time. And it saves me, I hate writing things, but I love talking clearly. So I simply sit at the breakfast bar over there and I write all of my blogs like that. And whether that's writing, I don't know. And then my videos, most of the ideas that I come up with are I will give it like 10 links of articles that I liked that week, and I'll say synthesize a video where I can talk about like some of the ideas in these articles. Here's my point of view on those things, and it'll say, right, here's 5 video ideas that you could produce this week, and I'll go and sit down and I'll just talk to the camera and I just record them.
And people can adopt those strategies for the job search as well, for their own personal brand. You can absolutely do that. You don't have to spend, that's why I say you don't have to spend hours anymore doing something. You can get it really, really quickly if you prompt it well. If you do the if you know how to use the tool, the outcome is much easier.
Absolutely. And even with video content, like I use AI to edit the videos now. So I use Opus Clip.
Yeah, yeah, same.
I just literally I record myself for like 20 minutes just chatting to the camera, and then it just finds the good bits. Like it's so great. It's
Yeah,
so great.
I
It's
love
so
Open
easy.
Clip. I'll be using it after this.
There you go.
Chop this up.
I really believe in it. I really believe in it as a tool. I think it's great. And those things are augments because it's still your point of view, it's still your thoughts, it's still your thinking. Um, but it is designed basically to drive like your content creation forward. So that's the way I would think about it.
It's a great place to end an hour of your time. I really appreciate it. I think everybody has as well. And I really, really appreciate your time, Tom.
My absolute pleasure. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you, Tom. Speak to you soon.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Cheryl.
Tom.
Bye bye.
Cheers. Thanks, Tom.
Bye.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.